50th amendment, there's finally real momentum coming out of the legislature and Governor Landry's administration, one of the most ambitious and fast-moving reform we've ever seen. But so far, it's the biggest no one's talking about. Thank you. We tackled the root of our insurance crisis, passing historic tort reform and major insurance changes to stop jackpot losses, shut down fraud, and finally bring relief to families and businesses crushed by rising premiums. We cut taxes across the board, flattening income tax, lowering corporate rates, and eliminating the outdated franchise tax once and for all. We jumped into the top 15 nationally for business tax filing, fueling over $60 billion in new economic investment across Louisiana, and launching the High Impact Jobs Program to attract long-term, high-wage employers. We revived oil and gas by cutting the severance tax in half and putting legacy lawsuits on a path to extinction, clearing the way for drilling, jobs, and long-term growth. We paid down pension and made historic deposits into state savings, laying the groundwork to finally pay teachers at the Southern average. We reformed the Department of Transportation and funded a $100 million plan to replace 62 aging bridges, with every project on track for completion within a year. We climbed from last place to 32nd in the national education rankings, one of the biggest jumps in the country. And we increased TOPS to help keep our best students from leaving for out-of-state schools. We made historic investments in college campuses that had been ignored for decades. We also passed truth in sentencing, making sure violent criminals serve the full time given by a judge or jury. We've spent 18 months rewriting Louisiana's story. We are finally moving forward, and the momentum is real.
How are y'all doing? I figured we'd just play the video and then we could all go. It really is unbelievable. I want to thank both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House for helping us put that video together. That was not a video for just the governor. That was a video for the great team that has been operating in Baton Rouge and around this state to make historic changes to the state. I tell you, I've been working for a couple of weeks now on my comments because I know y'all got Senator Kennedy up here. And that's a tough act, either follow or go forward. But I want you to know it's always great to be here in this part of the state because this is a part of the state that has understood the immense potential of Louisiana for decades now and is actually doing something about it. It is a part of the state that I've consistently said is the one bright, shining spot in our state. But not anymore. It still is a great, bright, shining spot. But I'm going to talk to you about all the other great, shining, bright spots that we have around the state. But I want to lay this out. You know, some 18 months ago, after being sworn in as your 57th governor, got in after the inauguration, I looked at a stack of books that people had gifted me on my desk. I was kind of looking for a manual of exactly how to be a governor. They give you one when you go to Congress, you know that. I don't know about the Senate, but in Congress. And so I was rifling through these books, and there was a small book that I picked up on Huey Long, and it was written, it was a note from the author, a gentleman by the name of Tyler Lucas, who was from Texas, a young man who was born and raised in Texas, but was attending the University of Virginia. Now, I don't know about y'all, but they tell me they got a good law school in Virginia. You'd have to ask Senator Kennedy about that. He could get in, I couldn't. But Tyler decided to pick up and write a book about Huey Long and his governorship. And what's interesting is the way that the book starts out. And so he starts the book out by saying that when Huey Long entered politics, Louisiana was an immensely backward state. It was suffering from a stagnant economy, a dreadful education system, and one of the worst infrastructure systems in the country. And so as I sat there and I read it, I turned to Sharon, we're sitting in bed, and I read those words to her. And she said, so that was Louisiana when Huey found it? I said, yeah. She said, so after 100 years, we still have those same problems? I said, yeah. She said, well, tell me, how long was he governor before they shot him? I said, 1 term. She said, well, good luck. You finally may have found yourself in a position you can't talk your way out of. I'm going to bed. But I kept reading on, and there was as Tyler continued, he said, worst of all, the leadership in Louisiana didn't seem to care. And that statement, that sentence, really to me brought into focus what type of challenge that we were up against some 18 months ago. But what I believed then is what I continue to believe today, that was not present then, is that we now do have a critical mass of people in this state who you have sent to Baton Rouge and to our nation's capital that actually care. And while it might not be apparent by picking up the paper or what the media says, and yes, you can always find those that love to complain that either progress is either too fast or not good enough, or it's going too slow, or they complain about what needs to be done or what others are not doing, or they brag about what they could do but seem to never actually get anything done. And then, of course, there are those that complain there's always a better way, or they certainly lack the patience for what it takes to change things. And then that's okay. You know, I've always heard consistently that politics is a selfish business. And people would tell me that all the time, and I'd say, I just don't subscribe to that. Because I believe what Ronald Reagan said is that there is no limit to the amount of good that you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. And we can only achieve great things, I believe, when we work with others by finding a way when there seems to never be a way. And so over the last 18 months, we have actually been able to assemble that critical mass of people who want to put aside the selfish part of politics and are hell-bent on changing the state. People who are more worried about the next generation than the next election. And what we have been able to accomplish is actually the greatest story that no one in this state is writing about. Because we are no longer the laughing stock of the South. No, today, Louisiana, for once in a lifetime, is poised to take its place as a leader in a new industrial South. And if you don't believe me, just go look up Google. It's so interesting now because it's not like in the old days. You got, actually all of y'all can do this on your cell phones. You can just go to Google and you can type in Reuters, Louisiana, and you see an article that Reuters writes, and they write, today the Bayou State is staging a revival that could see it emerge as the more dynamic and influential Gulf Coast hub over the coming decades. Think about that. You want to know why? Why? Because as our great economic development secretary says, Susan Bourgeois says, capital goes where capital is treated the best. And what we've done over the last 18 months is to tell the world that we will do the best things for them. I want you to just, as you sit there, I want you to think about where you were 3 years ago. I want you to think about what Louisiana looked like just 36 months ago. And then think about if I told you, if I'd have stood at this stage and said, just trust me, elect me governor, and let me tell you what we'll do. 36 months ago, we were 31st in economic outlook, and today we're 18th. If I'd have told you that we would be 18th, you probably would have said, he's a great politician and a liar, so you either voted for him because that's what you like, or you wouldn't have. But today, in the best states, worst states rankings of states to start a business, we've gone from 29th to 20th. In the Energy Information Administration's outlook for industrial electricity rating, this is important. We've gone from 21st to 5th, no, to 2nd. In U.S. News and World Report, the lowest cost of living, we've gone from 13th to 5th. In the best and worst education systems, in U.S. News and World Report, we went from 20th to 13th. We've had a 450% increase in potential new business. We've had a 127% increase in job opportunities. That equates to 70,000 new job opportunities across all four corners of this state. Think about that for a second. That is unbelievable. And you know what that does? That is the reason that for the first time in 30 years, 30,000, we counted 30,000 people coming into Louisiana rather than 35,000 people leaving Louisiana. I mean, the statistics keep going on and on. I mean, last year, Louisiana received the 2024 Platinum Deal of the Year from Business Facilities Magazine. I want you to know something. We've never been in the running for the bronze. Okay? Like, we were never even mentioned in this. We went from 0 to 100. We went from never being on the scale to getting the Platinum Deal of the Year. Our tax reform has given us the second lowest income tax in the nation. Now look, I want you to know something. Let me tell you how great the media is here. I go around and people say, I can't believe they eliminated the income tax in Mississippi. I said, well, they didn't. Oh yeah, I saw it on the paper. Look, I said, take you good. I saw them the other day. They did. They are going to eliminate their income tax in like 2040. Okay, they don't reach 3% until 2030. We're at 3% today. And if I would have told you that these would have been the statistics 36 months ago, you would have told me I was crazy. Really, I mean, honestly, I haven't found anybody that said, oh no, I knew that. I mean, we had 3 of the top 10 most dangerous cities in the country. New Orleans was in the top 10 most dangerous cities in the world. Today, crime has been cut by 50% in that city. And our cities are moving out of that ranking. And these statistics are proof that what we have done is actually the greatest story that no one is writing about. And it's the work that's being done again by this great legislation and by this great cabinet that we assembled. And I'm going to tell you something else. By also one of the most cohesive congressional delegations I have ever seen in this state. And they and we and I are capitalizing on the relationships that you have afforded us. Great relationships that we share with, like, the President of the United States, who, when I was in there the other day, I consistently remind him that Cameron Parish is in Louisiana, and it has the greatest percentage of vote. He received the greatest percentage of vote in Cameron Parish than anywhere in the country, because he has his little map. I want you to know he's got a map on his desk. It's like this red and blue map. It's like, really? Show me where Cameron is. So I show him. He's like, 93%. I thought I got 98. But we remind him, you know, from public safety to education to tax reform to insurance reform. Look, the people of this state How many of you have been begging for Louisiana to diversify its economy? They have been begging for a diversified economy since you belong. And today, we're on the brink of one. On the brink, like we've never had an opportunity before. But the question really is are we brave to embrace it? Today, we have $20 billion worth of private investment projects going on in all four corners of this state. It's mind-blowing. It's not only the story, okay, but never have we had that level of economic activity in all of the corners of the state. And if it hasn't touched you yet, just wait. I think we've moved so fast, people from Louisiana, they can't wrap their heads around it. From the largest data center that will be built in the world to the first steel mill to be built in this country in 60 years, to the largest construction project in North America. All of those things are going on in our great state. And the question is, are we capable of continuing the momentum? Because to do that, we have to figure out, are we capable of getting past the gaslighting that people like to do that divides us? Are we capable of having faith in those that we have elected to change the state and have proven that we can and can do more? I mean, just look at this area. For over 30 years, we've needed a new bridge over the Calcasieu River. Today, that bridge is a reality. It is being built. And each one of you are a stakeholder in it. There is not a deal like what y'all got anywhere in the world. In fact, there's not a deal in the world like what y'all have. Because once built, once paid for, this area will receive 15 cents on every dollar that comes off of that bridge that you get to put back in infrastructure in the entire Imperial Calcasieu area. No one has a deal like that. It is the greatest deal that's ever been done. In fact, after we did this deal, I got folks from Baton Rouge now. How can we do a deal like they did in Lake Charles? You see? Thanks to the Trump administration and Secretary Kristi Noem and this congressional delegation, by October, FEMA has agreed to release $21 million to Kevin Melton and his team over at Chenault, money that they have been waiting for 5 long years to begin repairing those hangars. It's coming in October. If not, I'm calling billions dollars. And no state has a larger stage than the one that y'all built here. Louisiana is now exporting 60% of all of the LNG going out of this country to the world, placing the Calcasieu port in the top 10 busiest ports in the country. No state plays a bigger role at delivering LNG than Louisiana now. No longer are we required to talk about building a vision. That vision, it's underway. Louisiana's LNG leadership is not hypothetical. It's operational, it's profitable, and it's growing. And you all deserve the credit. Give yourself a round of applause. The statistics are just unbelievable. I mean, why not just, I pulled this. I said, all right, I know we've got a bunch of LNG ports here. They're operational. We got a bunch more coming. Like, what are the permanent jobs that they have? Listen to this. The currently existing LNG ports have created 1,000 permanent jobs with an average wage of over $200,000 a year. Now that's lifting people out of poverty. That is something that everywhere you would go in the United States, they would be begging for. And that doesn't include the tens of thousands of construction jobs that continue to move in and out of this area, because we're not done yet. We've got so many more new LNG facilities. We got blue ammonia facilities that are talking about being built. And no area of the country is better positioned to grab this than us. We don't just export LNG, we export stability around the world. Because from Europe to Asia, remember this, from Europe to Asia, countries are turning to Louisiana to meet their energy needs. And the President's America First plan is playing out beautifully for Louisiana. And this is the story, again, that no one in Louisiana is writing about. But what's interesting is they don't write it here, but they're writing about it outside of Louisiana. And so the question is, can we continue the momentum? And I would tell you that the answer to that is yes, but only if we're willing to embrace new opportunities. And one of those opportunities is carbon capture.
Here we go.
Now I want to talk about this. Y'all know I like to get myself in trouble. But I want to explain to y'all about carbon capture, because it's what Asia and Europe want, okay? And it's equivalent to adding like a little blue tag on the bow of an LNG facility, because that's what they want. And I'm not here, I want you to know, I'm not here today to debate the rationale, only the reality. And many legitimate questions about it have been raised, but many statements have been made that are simply not true. But the reality is do we embrace it or don't we? Do we lose the opportunity and let some other state accept it? And the answer to that is really sitting at each one of these tables. It's not standing right here at this podium. It's up to y'all, but I've been thinking about trying to break this down, to explain to you what it's about. And so I thought about a little story about two cousins of mine. One's named T and the other's named Boo. Now, both of them are some crafty, little Cajun fellas. They both grew up in a little town, St. Martinville, where I was from. And both of them left at the same time. Boo went over to Houston and became a fancy car salesman in one of those fancy car lots, you know, like Porsche, Lamborghinis. And T, he came over to Lake Charles and went to work for Ryan Navarro, who had built the Porsche Chevrolet. I was wondering if somebody was here. But anyhow, so they left and they go and they went about their business about a year ago. And this year, right before the summer, they showed up at the camp. And T showed up in a brand new 21-foot bass boat. I'm talking about the metallic paint on it was so bright you needed sunglasses for it, even at night. He pulled that thing on a trailer. They had so much chrome. I think when you put the boat on the trailer, it looked like a Mardi Gras float. Had so many. How many of y'all bass fishermen around here? I'm talking like every accessory you can imagine. I mean, he must have spent like a small farm on the thing. And me and Boo were just like, what the hell has he gotten himself into? So he pulls up. He got his fancy boat here. We're like, well, T, how you got this boat? How can you afford that? He said, you ain't gonna believe this. He said, let me tell you what happened to me a couple of weeks ago. He said, last week I was over in the dealership in the showroom. He said, you know, Chevrolet just released a brand new special edition Corvette. And they were gonna send one to every state. They only making 50 of them. So we had one brand new, shiny red. I mean, you should have seen the thing. Did 100 miles an hour stop. He said, fella walks into the dealership and He starts looking at the car. So I tell him about it. I asked him, I said, how can I help you? He said, well, I'm looking for a sports car. I said, well, you got one right there. You want it? He said, I've been looking. I think I do, but I need 50. Now, T being the slick agent he is, first of all, he don't believe him. Second of all, he don't want to lose the sale. So the guy says, well, can you give me 50? He says, oh, I can get you 50, no problem. He said, but let me tell you something. I got to have to check your credit. You go buy 50 of these cars. Give me your credit. Let me go in the back. Your credit is good. I'll send you the 50. So the fella gives him his license, gives him his information. He goes in the back. He sees Ron. He says, Ron, you ain't gonna believe this fella wants to buy 50 of them brand new Corvettes. Ron says, well, I can't sell it 50. We only got one. He said, well, let's check his credit. So boy, they checked his credit. Lo and behold, the fella got more money than Bezos. They're looking at, oh my God, he can afford anything in the world. Ron said, I wonder if he wants to buy the dealership. Ryan says, what are we going to do? He says, well, look, Ryan, they tell me they make them Corvettes up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It ain't too far from Louisiana. Why don't you call them fellas up over there? Tell them we got a guy that wants to buy 50 of them. Maybe they'll make us a deal. Ryan's all right, call up Bowling Green, Kentucky. They can tell the guy, get the manufacturer rep on the phone. They told him, manufacturer rep said, I tell you what. He said, tell you what I'll do for you, Ryan. The guy's going to buy, if the guy agrees to buy 50, and he puts the money up front, and all of the cars have the same accessories, we'll make you one. We'll run 50 of them for the fella. So boy, T goes back. He says, I'll go back, tell the fella. The fella says, not a problem. T breaks out the brochure. They go through all the stuff. Like the heated steering wheel, the air conditioned seats, the touch screen, all of the fancy things. I don't know what you put in a Corvette, never rode one. I couldn't afford one. I should have went to for Ryan. So they go through them all. They get down to the color. So T says, telling us the story. He says, I asked the fella, you want a red one? The fella says, no. I said, well, he says, you want a black one? White one? He said, sometimes they make them sports cars in like a banana yellow. What color you want? Fella says, well, look, here's the thing. I want 25 of them pink with some blue polka dots. Like un gros comme ça, like my grandpa would say. He said, the other 25, I want them powder blue with some big pink polka dots. Now, T said, I'm looking at the fella saying, now who would want to ride around in a Corvette? Yeah, much less have 50 of them. But he said, but I held my breath because I didn't want to lose the sale. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do that? The guy says, can you do that? He said, I'm going to have to get right back to you. He runs to the back, says, Ryan again. Ryan was in the back calculating all the money he's fixing to make. Ryan said, what's the problem? He says, he got all the accessories, but he wants 25 of them pink with blue polka dots and 25 of them baby blue with pink polka dots. Ryan said, now how are we going to do that? He says, call that fella in Bowling Green. Yeah. Called the fella up, and the guy almost lost his mind. He said, I think y'all pulling my leg. The guy said, no. So I'm telling you, got all the money, got all the accessories. Here's what he wants. The guy says, well, I tell you what I'll do. He says, if the fella puts the money up front today, and he pays a 15% upcharge, we'll paint his cars, hell, any color he wants. He says, okay, goes in the back, goes back to the front, tells the fella whips out his checkbook, writes it out. And he tells T, he says, now T, you deliver them Corvettes to me in the color that I want, like we just ordered them. I'm going to come back in 6 months and I'm going to order some trucks. He said, if you deliver them trucks to me, he said, I'm going to make you the place where I buy all my vehicles, and I buy a lot of them. He said, I'm your man, believe you me. He said, that's how I got my boat. He said, let me tell you something. You should see my assortment of hunt rifles. Y'all think my boat's son? He said, I went and bought every one of them kind of weathermans they make. I can shoot things from a squirrel to an elephant now. That's how much money I made. Now I'm looking, while I'm listening to this story, and I look at poor Boo, and he's turning a little yellow. I said, Boo, what's wrong with you? He said, I think I'm going to be sick. I said, why? He said, well, T, let me ask you. That fella you were talking to, was he one of them Asian fellas? He said, yeah, I think he was from Asia. One of them countries out past California. He said, did he have a real fancy suit on? I said, yeah. Nice car, like a silk one? Yeah. Shiny black hair? Yeah. He said, now T, that fella wouldn't have happened to have some of them alligator slippers on. T says, Magoo, you know him? He says, do I know him? My manager threw him out our showroom. He wanted 50 pink Porsches just about a month ago. That's the question. The question is, are we going to sell it? Or is Texas done? Do we create a safe and trustworthy way to embrace this new opportunity, like those of us who stood before us and embraced oil and gas in the refining business 50, 60, 70 years ago? Do we keep this historic momentum going? Or do we really give it up? That's the question. Are we willing to throw the fella out of the showroom before we've had an opportunity to understand what they want? And do we go back to a state that will continue to have a stagnant economy, poor educational system, and bad roads? Because you cannot fix the educational system, you cannot fix the roads, you cannot fix the insurance problem unless you bring economic activity and jobs and money to this state. It is your choice. I want you to understand this. It is not my choice. I am not making that decision for you. We are bringing the opportunity to the people of Louisiana, but there will be no more meta opportunities. There will be no more steel mill opportunities. The amount of LNG exported out of here will decline if we don't have that little blue tag. Don't fuss at me. Go talk to them fellas in Asia and Europe. That's what they want. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, 18 months ago, you proved to the rest of the state, and actually America, that a child raised in a small rural town in Louisiana, from a heritage as thick as his accent, raised in a community that believed in God and family and country, that little boy could ascend to the highest spot in this state, when no one said we could. And I believe that you elected me and many of these folks that sit here today to change this state. To change this state so that our children could grow up with great memories. Like the memories I had when I was a young child, when I would go to bed at night excited about the next adventure that I could get myself into. How the little towns around this state offered great opportunities where you could leave your house unlocked and you knew everyone on the street. And while the booms and the bust of the oil field did affect us, our farms and our textile mills and our refineries saved us from severe economic distress. But the decades of bad policies in Washington, not these people's fault. I want to make sure we understand this. But the decades of past bad policies in Washington, D.C. have robbed this state of that. Each bad decision that they made at that Capitol over the last 50 years by those that were in charge seemed to sink the state deeper and deeper into despair. But I've always believed in this state, and I've always believed in you. And the trials that we have got taught us lessons that hard work, faith, and loyalty, and above all, faith, is what the people of Louisiana have taught me. Faith that whatever nature or foe threw at us, we never wavered and we never gave up. That in the despair and the challenges and the sorrow, this area more than ever instilled in me an obligation to right those wrongs of the past, to place the state on a path to success. And you know, I've been lucky. I've been lucky enough to travel around this country. And I've seen the progress and the economic opportunity that has blessed so many other states while we have waited. But I want you to know, we don't wait anymore. Today, the world gets to see us as who we are, as the people who never quit and never quit trying, as the people who never say it can't be done, as the people who find a way when there is no way, as the people who always have a kind word at their table, as the people who get to share a culture of hard work and humility that is our greatest asset. And whether they write this story today or not, today we are living in the greatest story that has yet to be told. And how it ends depends on you. God bless you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Governor.